The last story of tonight is Dell and the Bitcoin Treasury strategy. So we're shifting gears to economic news now. So, in case you guys don't know what the MicroStrategy Bitcoin Treasury strategy is, I put up this great chart. I did not make this chart; I stole it off of Twitter. But I think it does a really good job of kind of illustrating what exactly is the MicroStrategy strategy. Right. So what MicroStrategy is a company run by Michael Saylor, by the way. Right. So what Saylor did was uh, he found this way to kind of quickly leverage Bitcoin to increase the value of any company. And this it doesn't there's nothing unique about MicroStrategy ability to do this other than Saylor being kind of the visionary that he is to try and like do this and implement the Bitcoin strategy. And what Saylor has done is that you take any stock, right? So in this case, MicroStrategy, and you issue a bunch of debt. Uh, in this case, I think he was mostly using convertible notes, which are kind of like a call option and a bond wrapped together. But anyways, it's debt, right? So you issue a bunch of debt, and then you use the debt, the money that you got from selling the bonds to buy Bitcoin, right? And if you're right, and if you're bullish on Bitcoin, which I assume all of us here are, Bitcoin will increase in price, right? Because you're holding the Bitcoin on your balance sheet. That means your stock price also increases. So when your stock price increases, then your weight in the indices increase, and you might get selected for to be included in indices like index funds and stuff like that, right? So that's one factor. But then also another factor of when your stock goes up is that you're able to issue equity. You're able to use that like ATM, right, at the market equity program to kind of sell more shares. And yes, it is dilutive in the short term, but you're increasing, like you're raising all this money, and then you're using all this raised money to buy more Bitcoin. And assuming that Bitcoin keeps on going up in value, then that means that your stock price keeps on going up. And then that will enable you to increase to like raise even more money so you can do more equity, right? Or issue more debt. And then you buy Bitcoin again. And then you just kind of rinse and repeat this cycle. And this is what Michael Saylor has done. If you look at a chart of MicroStrategy's stock price, it went from this is like $100 or something before he implemented the Bitcoin strategy to now it's like, I don't know, like 1400 or something like that. So yeah, it's gone up like more than 10x since he implemented the Bitcoin strategy back in 2020. This is kind of the playbook, the Michael Saylor playbook. And the rumor now is that Michael Dell, who is another Michael, right? Don't know what is it about Michaels and Bitcoin, but Michael Dell is the founder of Dell Computers. And a lot of people don't know this actually, but Michael Dell is actually one of the most one of the richest men in the world. He's worth $109 billion. So his personal net worth is actually more than the entire company of Dell, which is publicly traded, by the way. I think last time I checked, they were just under $100 billion in market cap. But Michael Dell's personal wealth is even greater than that. And it appears that maybe Dell and Saylor have had a conversation where Saylor is like trying to orange pill him, and maybe he succeeded because Michael Dell tweeted, "Scarcity creates value," and that's kind of like one of the slogans of the Bitcoin community, I guess you could say. And then Saylor responded to it, being like, "Bitcoin is digital scarcity," and then Michael Dell retweeted that reply. And then this is an analyst kind of breaking down what potentially it means. So Michael Dell also, besides that, he also tweeted this kind of picture of the Cookie Monster. Except instead of cookies, it's Bitcoins. It's like an AI, I guess, generated image. And then he said, "This is a great account to follow," like blah, 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 right? But many have kind of maybe delved a little bit deeper and trying to analyze what this tweet means. And apparently, according to Mark Harvey, this Cookie Monster BTC meme makes sense. Dell has about $6 billion in cash and $103 billion in market cap. if Dell were to implement a Bitcoin Treasury strategy, it would be by far the largest corporation to do so. And as a co-founder, as a founder CEO led company, Dell has the visionary leadership required to make this happen. So this is kind of the story. And the question is, do you think that Dell will adopt the Bitcoin strategy? And what do you think about the Bitcoin strategy in general? Do you think it's a good strategy? Do you think that more companies are going to use it in the future, or just kind of your thoughts about anything I've said in general? So take it away, guys.
So I'll take it away. So I think overall he does seem pretty bullish on the idea of Bitcoin because if he tweets like scarcity creates value, which is like, a slogan, so to speak, for Bitcoin, I guess the Bitcoin community, from what you guys are saying, I think he probably is bullish on Bitcoin and would inevitably, you know, do the whole entire Bitcoin this like process here that um will happen and I could probably see happening. I think retweeting this meat cookie monster or like kind of like showcasing is pretty funny in a sense too. And I think it'd be pretty interesting because Dell's like a really huge company. And then, as you were mentioning before, Michael Dell has an extremely large net worth in general. So if he's, grabbing a piece of the pie, I think that it'd be really cool actually. And then in terms of like other companies adapting it, um, maybe perhaps because there's all on the flip side, there's a lot of companies who have CEOs who are quite boomers. So I don't know if they would necessarily, but I think with more knowledge, they may get inspired, influenced to see the value in Bitcoin, which we all personally do see here. So I think only time will tell. And as of right now, I think he does seem pretty bullish, and he may do something about it, like how Saylor has done something about it too as well. So yeah.
I sincerely doubt that Dell, the company, will go and use the Bitcoin Treasury strategy because one of the big factors for that is its size. Because at this point, in order to get your shareholders on board with the Bitcoin Treasury strategy, you would need a lot to get a lot of shareholders on side. So that's a lot of people to convince that Bitcoin is the future that may not believe Bitcoin is the future. And so I think that the likelihood that he actually tries it for the company itself is pretty slim. And I mean, maybe he's got a large enough ownership himself that he could just do it. But again, I'm not fully aware of that portion of his portfolio. So in that regard, I wouldn't be surprised if Michael Dell decides to purchase some Bitcoin or a lot of Bitcoin with some of his riches, but I don't think that the company itself is going to go into the Bitcoin Treasury strategy. I think it was much easier for Michael Saylor to do it with MicroStrategy because MicroStrategy was considerably smaller, which meant that the number of shareholders that he needed to convince was significantly smaller. And I mean, even if you can show MicroStrategy as a win case, it doesn't really change anything if the majority of the people just don't believe in Bitcoin itself in general, right? So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, so maybe just to provide a little bit more context on that, I don't know how much Dell shares that Michael Dell still controls. It is a publicly traded company, so obviously he doesn't control all of the shares, but I don't know if it's above 50% or less than 50%. If it's above 50%, then I think he could still push through the strategy, right? Because on most things, you only need 50% control. And, even if he doesn't have 50%, then maybe a few insiders would have, like, he has, maybe some co-founders or some executives that he could convince that would hold a significant portion of the shares, right? But I do know what Michael Saylor did, right? So first of all, I think Saylor did control over 50% of MicroStrategy shares when he had decided to adopt the Treasury strategy. But even then, like you said, Tristan, it's like you have to convince like a lot of the shareholders who may not be believers in Bitcoin to kind of go along with it, right? And uh, believe it or not, MicroStrategy, before they became a Bitcoin company, they made software, and they in fact still make software that nobody cares about because they've become a Bitcoin company. But back when it was a software company, yeah, it was indeed a concern that, like, if Saylor was saying that, if you were to do this, then maybe people won't be on board. So what Saylor did was he had kind of like a tender offer, what he called it. So, or what it's called in general, which is just when the company makes a price, proposes a price to buy back the shares at a certain price. So if you had shares in the company, you could sell it back to MicroStrategy, and the tendered offer price was higher than what the market price is at that moment when they announced it. So that's kind of what Saylor did, and like everyone who didn't want to be on board with the Bitcoin strategy could sell their shares at the tendered price and then get out of the company at a profit. So that was kind of a compromise that Saylor did, and it's like, if you decide to hold your shares and stay, well, those people by now they're like ascended into a higher plane of existence. MicroStrategy just went completely parabolic, right? So I think, yeah, maybe like a lot of the people who left probably decided to, or probably regretted their decision, if I were to guess. But that's kind of like how Saylor dealt with the kind of getting shareholders on board part, if that's the big concern. And regarding the size of the company, like you said, yeah, I mean, maybe that is a factor, but I think maybe a bigger factor is, again, like I said, the percentage of the company, like Michael Dell or whoever controls, right? Whoever wants to get on board with this strategy. And yeah, I think Tesla kind of maybe started to adopt this strategy back in 2021, although they didn't go all in with it like Saylor did, right? But they did add Bitcoin to their balance sheet in 2021. And I believe that um, Tesla back then was like a $400 billion company, even back in 2021. So it's like 4 times the size of Dell now. So yeah, I mean, it could be done with a large company, I think, but the size isn't really like a barrier, I would say, but it would definitely make waves. I think in the finance world, if we got a company like Dell to adopt the Bitcoin strategy. But yeah, anyways, let me pass it to you guys if you guys have any thoughts. Or if not, we have gone on for a long time, so maybe we could wrap up the show soon. But yeah, Tristan, you were gonna say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that it looks like Michael Dell was selling a lot of his own shares. So it's possible that one of two things is happening. He is just getting some money, or maybe he is getting some money to fund some Bitcoin purchases. Just saying, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
actually, there's an account that we don't know who it is that's been buying Bitcoin, like 100 Bitcoin at a time and multiple times a day, sometimes for like weeks on end, right? Like they would buy 100 Bitcoin every hour for like 8 hours, and then they would stop, and then the next day they would do it again, and they would do that every day for like a week, and then stop, right? And then like a couple of weeks would pass, and then they would start again. And this person or entity or whatever, it could be a company, is called online. It's been dubbed Mr. 100. And maybe the rumor is that Michael Dell is Mr. 100. But it does seem like it's a lot even for Michael Dell. But who knows, right? Like,
yeah, he was buying since like March, or at least he was selling his shares since like March.
Yeah, you were saying Michael Dell was selling his shares, or
Yep.
Mr. 100 was buying Bitcoin?
I was saying Michael Dell was selling his shares since March. So
Yeah, I don't remember when was the first purchase known by Mr. 100, but I mean, maybe the timelines match up, maybe they don't, but it definitely seems like whoever this Mr. 100 is, if it's not Michael Dell, they're like still stacking Bitcoin to this day, right? Every dip, they're just buying 100 at a time, like every hour for like 8 hours. It's kind of nuts.